Welcome to Basic Object Transformation. Wow, that sounds like a mouthful. Don't worry, it's relatively straightforward. So let's go ahead and make something. So we're going to learn here how to scale or resize, Blender calls it resizing, rotate and move or translate objects. We'll also be learning how to constrain those particular operations as well. Speaking of operations, we're going to introduce you to the operator panel. This is something that confuses people, especially when you've not used Blender before, because it's a kind of a phantom. It disappears when you need it again, and I'll explain why and what is happening. Understand the 3D manipulator widget. We've already seen it. It's that white ball in the middle of the screen with the multicolored arrows coming out of it. I'll explain more about that for you. And we're also going to add objects to our scene, so we're going to be building with primitives. So let's hop straight on over into Blender. Okay, so we're over in a default blend file here, and I would suggest for the moment that you watch what I'm doing and where I'm clicking so you can get a good grasp of all of the items. We've got a lot to go through in this lecture, and I wouldn't want you to miss anything as we go through. So we've got our cube in the middle of our scene here, and we need to do something with it. We need to make it smaller, we need to move it to another position, we need to put it at a different angle. Now we have some options up on the top left on the tool shelf for transforming. That's great, we're doing transformation, this sounds great. So we've got translate, rotate and scale. Those are the three most common things that you'll be doing with objects. So we can translate, and what does translate mean? It means move. And we can right click to cancel the move, or we could have left clicked to apply the move. Now you'll notice as you hover over these, it actually tells us what the shortcut key is. It also tells us a bit more detail. So translate, it actually has in brackets there, move the selected items. Rotate, the shortcut is R, so that's great. Translate, rotate and scale is S. So scale is S and rotate is R, that's great, but translate is G. So I think about that as grabbing your object, grabbing it and moving it about your scene. So that's also very powerful. So I can go here and I can hit the G key and start moving things about. Now remember that the keys that you press, your cursor has to be over the appropriate window. Now the G key might do something different over another window. So make sure your actual cursor is over the window before you start pressing it. Pressing the G key, the R key, or any other shortcut key. So if we press the R key, we can move it about, and the S key, we can scale it up and down. Now you'll notice it doesn't go to nothingness, it actually flips inside out and comes out the other way as well. Now that can cause you problems later on, so if you want to scale up, make sure you don't push through yourself and end up negative. If I can draw your eyes to where the 3D editor bar used to be, we can see that it says scale X minus 2.4, etc, etc. And that is what is happening there. So that's going the wrong way. Let's go back this way and scale it upwards. There you go. So I've scaled it upwards by roughly 3. Now in the operator panel, if you've been paying attention in the lower left here, you might have caught that the operator panel was changing depending on what I'd just done. So if I go ahead, I've resized it here so it's big. Oh, by the way, if you adjust the size of this and make it too small, you end up with another little plus icon within the tool shelf itself, and that will bring up the operator panel. Once we're in the operator panel, this is something that confuses a lot of people. The moment you do something else, the previous operation you've just done, whether it be moving, scaling, rotating, or even undoing or selecting another item, that will break the operator panel. So if I go ahead and start moving the camera, for instance. So I'm going to use the 3D manipulator widget to move this, and left click on look at that. We can actually move things up and down in the Z direction. That's very powerful. But the moment I've done that, I've lost the ability of the transform, in this case the scale, that we'd done to the cube. There's no going back. That's important. Once you've moved on, there is no going back to the operator panel. So let's say I had resized that to that amount. We've got an option here, and look, we've got a way of constraining. So the vector is the change. So if I resized it in the X direction, I can change that. Look at that. We can make different shapes. very, very powerful. We can also have that constraint whilst we're scaling. So if I hit S and scale, and decide that I want to constrain it on one of the axes, I can press X, and there we go, we're making it longer and shorter in the X-axis. I can press Y and make it longer and shorter in the Y-axis, and the same with Z. So Z is up in this case, and we can see it's going up and back down again, making it thinner. Now, when you're doing movements like this, sometimes it moves too much. So let's hit S again and go Z. So we're locking it to the Z axis. And let's say that's just moving far too much. What we can do at this point is literally just hold the shift key down, and that enables us to move much more slowly and have greater control. That shift key, by the way, works if we go over to, let's say, the operator panel here. We've got a slider here. We can click on Z and slide it up and down, and we can also hold down shift and slide it up and down much slower. Or we can just type a number in there, which is very, very powerful. In fact, we can not only type a number in there, but I can type 1 plus 5 plus 7.2 or something like that in there. And it will add those up for us. We can actually type equations into there, which is brilliant. You sometimes have to know how to give Blender equations, but if it's just simple multiplication or division, you can type it straight into any of these number fields that we can see. So we've already mentioned the 3D manipulator widget. On the header bar itself, for the 3D editor header, you can turn the 3D widget off and on. You can also change what it does. So at the moment, it's set to the arrow, which means translate. Okay, and then we can rotate and we can scale. And we can select either one, and if we've got it on rotate, we can left click on that and rotate it round. Now I will use a mixture of the 3D manipulator widget, or I will use the keyboard shortcuts. That's my general use. I'm just going to scale that back down now so it's a bit smaller. And something that we've learned previously, I'm going to hit the numpad full stop and just zoom in on that selected object so we can see what we're working on. Now the final thing, of course, is adding some additional objects to our scene. Okay, how do we do that? Well, we're going to look for something called add. And if we go down to the 3D editor header, we can see there's an add menu. If we hover over it, it gives us a bit more information, and we can see that there's a shortcut, Shift and A. And Shift and A will bring up this menu, but underneath your cursor in the 3D editor. So I'm going to go Shift and A, and we've got plenty of things that we can add. At the moment, I just want you to focus on mesh. So let's say we want to add a cone or a cylinder. We can go ahead and select one. Now, where has it appeared? Well, it looks like it's appeared down there, but because that's now the selected object, I can press the numpad full stop and focus on it. Now, that particular object that we've just created has appeared where the 3D cursor was. So if the 3D cursor had been moved at any point, it would appear there. Now, if you have a look at the operator panel, we will see that we've got some control over that primitive, that basic shape that we've just added to our scene. This control only exists for this moment in time. If we do anything else or start doing anything else in our scene, we would lose the ability to change these items down here. So we can see that the number of vertices, let's just see what that does. Let's move it to the left and right. Okay, it changes. At its smallest point, 3, we got ourselves a pyramid, okay, and as we increase it, the base gets more and more circular. Okay, that's powerful. What else can we do? Oh, we can make it not a complete cone, so it looks like we've got a radius of 1 across the bottom, and a radius of 2 at the top, I'm presuming. Let's make that larger. Yes. There we go. How cool is that? A depth. Well, what does the depth do? And I encourage you guys to play with this. You know, at this early stage, you're not going to break anything. Play with it. See what you get from it. And I won't go into details about what the rest of this means at this moment in time. That's something for another lecture. But you can see that you've got lots of control. If we go ahead and straight away add another object, let's add a UV sphere. And we've got options here that we can change. But of course, once we've actually done that, there is no going back. So if I decide to use the 3D manipulator widget on its moving function and left click on that arrow and move it out of the way, I can't now go back and change any of the settings I had on that particular UV sphere. It's now stuck like that. If I wanted to change the number of segments or rings that it has, I would have to create a new object. Hey guys, so this is the end of section challenge. It's going to be a bit of a bigger challenge than the ones you've had so far, but don't worry, it's nice and straightforward. I'd like you to add into your scene a cube, a cylinder, and a cone. Now place these on top of one another. Have fun with this. They don't have to be exactly butted up against one another. You can put them inside one another if you'd like. Just play with it. Make some funky shapes. If you guys want to add something else other than a cube, a cylinder, or a cone, by all means, make a toy castle out of cubes that you've squished together, and the towers and the turrets can be made out of cylinders. You can have lots of fun as if these were little wooden blocks that children play with. It's amazing what you can come up with. And I'd like you to then create 4 3D editor windows. So using the knowledge that you've gained earlier on in the course, I'd like you to create the 4 3D editor windows and change them to a certain view type. I'd like a perspective, it doesn't matter where it's looking. I'd like an orthographic projection. I would like a front view and a top view. Now in tradition, usually the front and top views would be an orthographic projection, but it doesn't matter. But if you want to make them traditional, I suppose, make the front and top orthographic as well. Remember to take a screenshot and share it with us. I love seeing your work, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with just by using these basic building blocks. So pause the video and give that a go. Okay, so I'm going to stick rigidly to the challenge that I set here. So I'm going to create a new Blender file so I can get rid of everything that's going on there. So I've got a cube, a cylinder, and a cone. Okay, I'm going to stack them on top of one another. So I've got the cube there, so I need to add. So add, it's going to be a mesh and cylinder. Okay, so that's inside the other one just there. I think I'm going to use the 3D manipulator widget and just pull it up. Okay, now I can align my view, of course. I can look at it from the side in orthographic view. There we go. I can get a better control of how to line things up there. It's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be at this stage. Don't worry about that. Okay, so what was the other one? A cone. Okay, so let's add. I'm going to use this keyboard shortcuts this time. A mesh and cone. Okay, brilliant. And that is also, it's appearing on the... Oh, you know what we could do? I'm going to undo the add of that cylinder. I'm going to go ahead and click on... Oh, I haven't undone the add. There we go. So I'm going to click on the surface of my sphere. Cube. And from that, oh, that's not quite lined up, unfortunately. Let's look at it from the top. Okay, that's good. So if I click there, that's roughly in the middle. That might be good enough. Let's go ahead and add a cylinder. Now I'm going to click again on the top, roughly in the middle, and add a cone. Oh, cool. Okay, they're in one another. So the origin was the middle of that. That's good. I'm getting this. Let's move this up. And move this one up, and we got ourselves somewhat looks like a tower or a lighthouse. In fact, I'm going to do some scaling here. Let's scale this one in and then move it back down again. And again, looking at it from the side helps align things up. Remember, you can do that. I'm liking that. I'm going to make my square base just a little bigger, or cube base a little bigger. I'm just going to scale it up. There we go. That's all sitting on there really nicely. So I'm going to hide my tool shelf so it's nice and neat, and I'm going to split the window in two. I'm then going to split each one of these windows there, and I'm going to hide the toolbars so it's nice and clean. There we go, there, and there. Okay, all the header bars, and now we just need to change the scene. So one of them needs to be perspective, done. And then one of them needs to be the front, and one of them the side or the top. I can't remember my own challenge. Yes, it was top. So there we go. We've got ourselves, oh, I've moved the 3D view. We've got ourselves 4 different views of a cone, a cylinder, and a cube stacked on top of one another. How did you guys get on? Did you make something from this? Did you make a castle? Did you make a lighthouse? Did you make a house out of something like this? Make sure you've shared with us so we can see how you're getting on. I love seeing what you guys come up with. And I will see you guys in the next lecture.